Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Teaching Tax Flow podcast, episode 197. You might notice something a little different here. There is somebody on here with me, and heck, we're going to call him my co-host today because Chris Pacuro, we'll say he's on vacation. We gave him the day off. We are going to talk about a topic today. Personally, I'm really excited about. We're going to talk about that pesky little 1040, right? If nobody knows what a 1040 is, well, you got a little bit of a different issue that you need to learn about that. But that IRS Form 1040 is something you may just sign on once a year, maybe with a check that you used to have to mail. Now you're likely doing that electronically, or you feel like you're going to get a refund. So there's also a problem we're going to talk about if you're getting a refund. That's also technically another issue. So that should perk your ears. But Bill Park, welcome to the show, man. I'm super excited to talk to you on this one. Frankly, what do you actually do? Let's have you introduce yourself. So what's your title in your little paradise background you have there? And what are you up to, man? I want to hear it from your mouth.
Well, I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on the show, John. But that's a really good question. It's funny. My dad's 87 years old, and he still asks me that question. What do you do, son? I'm like, well, okay, Dad. Okay, I got to explain it to you. That's crazy. Well, essentially, I've literally had one job my entire life. I mean, I'm not talking about going through high school and stuff, but a real job. And so I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just out there building stuff, creating things. I have a couple of companies. I've got a bookkeeping, accounting, financial services business. I got a real estate company. I got a software development company. I do some private angel investing, and also founder of TaxHackr. And that's where I spend most of my time right now. And I just enjoy building, creating, and just engaging life.
I love it. And honestly, that's probably one of the shortest definitions I've ever heard an entrepreneur say. Because usually it's like, how many things can I go through? And 10 minutes later, they start talking about what they're up to and what they're moving forward with. But so obviously you mentioned TaxHackr. So that's why we're here. TaxHackr. Like, what is this thing? And frankly, that's why we're talking about this topic, right? So you guys have developed a tool, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that. And then obviously the 1040 as a whole, we're going to dive into. But I think the greatest thing about this is, right, is you didn't go to college to become a developer and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna create a bunch of fun stuff and go after all these industries," and kinda take the normal approach. I think what a lot of people take, they learn a skill and then they build something around that. You've gone, I guess we can call it grassroots for the most part, right? Like, you sat in the seat of the people you've developed something for. Is that probably the best way to describe
Yeah,
that?
it's spot on. I mean, I definitely have I don't know, maybe it's a sickness of some sort. I don't know,
You're
but
an entrepreneur. Yep, we all got the same disease, buddy. We're
I
good.
can't I can't leave things alone, right?
Mm.
And so if I see a way to strip away, I think Elon Musk says this, get rid of the dumb stuff, which I love that he said that. So get rid of the dumb stuff. So I try to do that, and that kind of led me into software, is trying to figure out to automate and have people focus on their higher value skill level stuff. So that's kind of how it come about. And as an entrepreneur, nobody has nobody has exactly the solution for what you're working on. You know what I'm saying? The tools, even if you're trying to create something, you still have to build your own stuff. So, and I really like to do that.
And with this, I mean, I remember the first time that me, you, and Chris actually talked, and you were telling us about the platform you guys have, and it almost hit me then, or it might have been the second time we talked a while back, is, when people go into business for themselves, and in this case scenario, we're really just talking about business owners for the time being. But everybody's very intrigued and very excited, and, they have this aura, I guess you can say, around them about, "Oh, I'm doing my own thing. I'm gonna have all this freedom. I'm gonna follow my passion." They're all excited, but then I don't think anybody actually tells them, like, "Hey, you can actually, in your situation, most of the time, you have so much control over your tax situation." I think sometimes people are more afraid, like, "Oh, crap, I'm gonna have to pay, SE, a self-employment tax, and all this other stuff," and then they all of a sudden think that a deduction is 100% discount, which is not the case. That's a whole nother conversation. But what you guys have, basically, you've developed this where somebody is taking their 1040, which really, in a sense, is their IRS report card. I guess you can call it that, or some other form. They're putting it into something, and it's starting to expose or elevate or bring to the surface opportunities they have. So I think it's funny, right? And anybody who's listening to this might laugh. Here you are talking about taxes or listening to it, and neither myself or you, Bill, are tax professionals, which is fantastic. I don't know how they do it, but let's talk about, why everybody's here. Why they're probably here thinking, well, what in the world does a 1040 have to do with tax planning? Or how can I use that as a basis for something or a kickoff point? So maybe walk us through that and kind of inadvertently, right? It's going to tell us about how y'all's platform works because that's what it does, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, you're spot on. I look at a 1040 as sort of like the rear view mirror. So when you're looking in your car in the rear, you see in the back, that's what the 1040 does. But you're driving, you're looking through your windshield. And I think there's a big issue there. And I did this for years in starting a business. Like I was always reactive. I wasn't looking forward in terms of my my taxable opportunities or reducing my tax. I just thought it was just the way you do things. You hire a CPA, you go through, you hustle, you make money. They put it into this form, and then you have to write a quarterly check. Right? I mean, that just seems to be the way to do it. But then the more and more I did that, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. I mean, I I have no way to solve anything, and I feel like I'm in the same cycle like Groundhog Day, right? But if I compare it to like um, blood work, right? So blood work is you get a composite, right? They're going to take blood from you. They're going to build this whole composite. And why do they do that? Well, they do that because they're trying to understand baseline, kind of what you said about understanding a baseline. And then they're going to see, okay, what's acute? What can be treated right now? What's forward looking in order that we're going to solve some problem that's dealing with your blood work or some symptom that you're having. Well, that 1040 is sort of that tool, but it's a mysterious tool. It's like you look at it and you're like, how do I even read this thing? And then there's all these schedules, and what does all that mean? I'm like, somebody needs to demystify this. And I hate to beat up professionals, EAs and CPAs and anybody that's doing compliance or filing. That's a tough job. There's a lot to do there, right? However, it's not as mysterious as people think it is. Like I wanted to solve that. I wanted to solve that for everyday people, that they could have a solution to upload their 1040, demystify it in natural language and say, hey, guess what? It looks like you may have overpaid a little. You can fix that. Here's how you can do that. Hey, you might want to look into these things, right? Because the 1040 isn't the whole picture. It's just, like I said, when you look in the rear view mirror, how big is that view? It's small, right? But when you look in the windshield, how big is that view, right? So now we're taking that rear view perspective and saying, how can we fix something today and in the future? So that was my idea: is how do we demystify that, make it easy and light for anybody to look at, read, and understand.
I love that example of blood work. I don't think I've ever heard that one, and it's almost like the patient going in for blood work is kind of the 1040, right? Like
Yes.
you're there and, they're gonna tell you some things, and it's
Mhm.
up to you the taxpayer at the end of the day, though, whether or not you wanna do anything. If you're sitting there eating a candy bar in the parking lot every morning for something, I mean, it's up to you if you wanna stop it, right?
That's right.
Or like in y'all's case, you guys are looking at the 1040, you're demystifying it. I love that word. And you're breaking it down into something that's digestible, it's understandable is another thing, and then it's outlining things, right? And I think you mentioned to or alluded to it in some regard is there's some stuff that I wouldn't say anybody can understand, but a lot of people can, and then obviously there's a whole gamut of other things, right? Like which ones play nice together, if
Mhm.
implemented at the same time, which ones are more beneficial, what's shorter, what's longer term game. But what we're talking about here is that taking that 1040, I wish I had a piece of paper here I can just hold up, being like, this little guy here that is a static document at this point, right?
Mhm.
Once it's done, print it off, air quotes. What can you do with it? Like you said, some people just move it along, like yourself, you just do it every year and you get it out of the way. But using it as a planning tool, that little bastard should be up on the wall, frankly.
Oh,
Like, you should be looking
absolutely.
at that thing because that's your printed off map off, MapQuest 20 years ago, right? Like, keep referring to this thing, and it's gonna guide you where you want to go. So I love that you guys have taken that approach, and let's talk a little bit more about your how you got into this, right? So like you've had some experience as a business owner where, we talked a little bit prior even to hitting record here. You've kind of felt like you had to go through that gamut. At what point did you realize, like, you know what, I really need to do something about this? Was it just somebody said something to you? Was it a podcast you listened to? What was the trigger moment? I'm just curious.
Well, this is going to go back. I mean, this is probably going to go back 2 decades, but I felt I felt like every tax season was Groundhog Day, and we're talking about the same things. Although the topics would change slightly, but I felt surprised all the time. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm trusting this tax professional to do their best job, and I'm not saying they weren't doing their best job, but I felt like, well, they just couldn't put the time and effort in to really prepare and plan properly and really educate me on things where that, kind of like that, don't eat candy bars, right? Change your diet this way, do these 3 things, right? There was really none of that. It was always very compliance oriented. I said, I just need to understand that. So what I started to do is I said to my CPA, I said, I need you to go through and show me every line and explain it to me in detail every year. And I said, it's your obligation to explain to me why I'm paying what I'm paying. And that it was eye opening for me. Right. And anyway, so as that was my journey, frustration, overpaid for many, many years. Today, it's a different story. Today's a completely different story. I sold a business in 2024. I paid zero capital gains tax.
And that's not something you could do if you just tried to figure that out after it was sold.
Well, I don't even think a CPA would have done that for me. In some cases, not to say that they can't. I'm not beating up on the CPAs, apologize out there, but I talk to business owners that have sold their companies too. Guess what? They're paying capital gains tax. They didn't have to. So I think it's really, really important for people to I think, who was it? This great quote, and it was by Leonard Hand. Leonard Hand. He was a chief justice. This goes back in the 30s, and he said this. And I think I'm screwing it up here, and you might want to fact check it exactly, but it is it's your inalienable right to pay as little taxes as possible. It's your obligation in life. So it was it was a very interesting quote. So anyways, I've take that personally. So I want to help everybody in that cause to pay as little as possible. In some cases, 0.
It's a great approach, and this is how I've explained this to people, right? Like, again, me not being a tax professional, I learned through osmosis, through Chris and everybody else too. It's if it wasn't if it wasn't thought about, we'll say, by the IRS and Congress and all this stuff to make itself into the guidebook. This is the IRS publication, thousands of pages. The toughest part about it, and again, my opinion from learning about this is the toughest thing is knowing what's in it and knowing what's not in it. If it's not in it, you can take advantage of that. If it's something that's in it, you can also take advantage of that. So it's been thought about, it's been put in there. They've probably thought about it a heck of a lot more than the taxpayer has. So it's finding somebody that works with you to accomplish what you want to do. Right? If they didn't want somebody to pay $0 in tax or, $1,000 in tax, I feel that they would put that in there somehow, be like, you have a minimum tax payment due of X. Like there's all these guardrails in there that as long as we play within them, I mean, you're not poking the bear, for lack of better
Oh,
terms. You're just doing what's there, right? But people
oh,
don't know about it.
poke the bear. I mean, you should poke the bear. I mean, that's my thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your documentation is going to rule the game, is going to rule that match. The record itself of the 1040 document isn't the underlying a truth and source. It's your documentation. I think there's the other problem, right? It's people don't understand that level of documentation. But real quick side note of how my ignorance was, I have 6 kids.
This podcast is brought to you by Legacy Lock. If you are new to estate planning or simply need to review your current plan, Legacy Lock makes it as easy as pie. Legacy Lock is a unique platform that enables you to easily complete your attorney-drafted documents conveniently from the comfort of your home or office. Your first step to this peace of mind is simply visiting teachingtaxflow.com/legacy.
All right, business owner. Now, a business owner with 6 kids, there's a huge financial opportunity there. I knew nothing about it when my kids were growing up, and I had a pretty sizable company then. Like the amount of money I could have legally expensed for my company and given down to my kids to set them up, in a tax-free environment would have been huge for me. I knew nothing about it. That's the kind of stuff that I want to close that gap.
And I love that there's tools out there like what we're talking about, what you guys have worked on, that it's a DIY, call it a step one, right? Like somebody can get in and they're being exposed in a credible way, right? It's not like you've caught 15 seconds of a 45-minute, conversation on TikTok, and now all of a sudden you're running out looking for a vehicle that weighs 6,001 pounds, and it's going to change your world because it's taken out of context, right? Like when something is positioned in front of somebody at their own, say their own will, their own timeline, say it's 2:00 in the morning, or say it's in a lunch break while they're walking. I always feel that for me, it's always so much better the outcome, because then the pressure is not really on them of having to make a decision at that moment. They're in like sponge mode, right? They're in education mode, and everything's laid out in front of them, and then they can take those next steps. So whether it's reaching out to their tax professional, or just leaning on somebody else, or researching something specifically that they don't know a lot about, it's the ball's in their court. Where I think some individuals, I mean, I would feel this way, is say they only met with a tax professional once a year. Say there's that tax deadline that's, lingering up in April, and, it's April 1st or May 25th or something, and they finally get in with a meeting with their tax pro. And everybody seems kind of rushed. They might prepare a little bit, but they're only preparing what they know they can get. There's not a lot of opportunity conversation there, right? So what we're always talking about tax planning as a whole, it's that windshield and review mirror, and that continual flow of conversation where, I think if people's mind shift, I know I'm kind of going on a whim here a little bit, but if people change their mindset a little bit and they're looking at that document, that 1040, however many pages theirs is, but and holding on to it and not throwing it away or storing it away until next year. Like keep that puppy around, because that is something like the report card, right? The report card to a kid is telling you how good or how bad you did. A report card to a parent is telling them where they have opportunities to improve, which I think is very similar to a 1040, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely makes sense. I mean, it is a reconciliation, right? So, and that is super important. You said something about this idea of, once a year meetings and stuff like that. And having that forward facing look, it's a tough business, filing tax returns, being compliant, and running a business in that regard. It's a lot of work. And if you think about it, they have a real obligation to get that return filed, right? That's their main objective, is to get that return filed. And they're counting on the individual to give them the information to file. Okay. That's the job. Okay. Yep. And 90% of the time, that's exactly what you're getting. And we just need to flip that a little bit. We need people, individuals like you and I, take personal responsibility with our own finances and our own course of action and our ability to feel we have control over it. And I think that's another gap. People don't feel they have control, and they do. They have 100% control. Especially if you're a business owner, the last thing you pay is taxes. Now, if you're a W-2 employee, that's the first thing you pay, right? But even then, you have some opportunities to determine how much is withheld.
So it's a fun game.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you lose, then it's not a fun game.
I love the game.
But no, this is awesome, Bill. And we could talk on this, I think, for a long time and go off into a lot of different alleys or aisleways, which is great. So we're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to have you back on. I know we got some stuff on the books. We're actually be in person together, so everybody can be on the lookout for some little clips. I know we're gonna pop out of that, but honestly, Bill, this was great, man. And if you're okay with it, I'm gonna put a link in our show notes too if anybody wants to check out TaxHackr. That was a tool that you guys created.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Check it out. I mean, it's a great tool, and I'm not just saying that because Bill's on here with me. If it wasn't any good, I would tell him. So,
Yeah.
as you guys know, I don't have a filter. So, I appreciate it so much, man. We'll see you soon and have you back on if
All right.
I didn't scare you off.
John. All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody who's listening to this, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching it, if you're listening to it, and you're not a YouTube person, maybe consider getting on YouTube there and be sure to subscribe, hit the little bell too. You get the notifications every time a new podcast episode is released weekly. We do them here and we are creeping up. So we are almost to that 200 mark, which that means that we've been doing this for 200 weeks. Man, do I feel old. That's a lot of tax return. Anyways, we're not going to go down that avenue, but check it out. And also go to defeatingtaxes.com. It's kind of the fork in the road, if you will. It can get you multiple places, multiple resources we have here at Teaching Tax Flow. So as always, we'll see everybody back here again next week on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
The information in this podcast is educational and general in nature. It reflects the opinions of Teaching Tax Flow and does not take into consideration the viewer's personal circumstances. It is not intended to be a substitute for individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making any decisions. Securities are offered and supervised through Cabin Securities Inc. member, FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered and supervised through Cabin Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Chris Picciuro is a registered representative of Cabin Securities and an investment advisor representative with Cabin Advisors LLC. Teaching Tax Flow is an independent entity and is not affiliated with Cabin Securities or Cabin Advisors.